Hey YouTubes, you know today's gonna be a good episode because I've got the dry erase board behind me. That's right, we're gonna do some basic buy and hold analysis for rental properties. This will be good for anybody, anywhere. However, I will use some specifics to the Bryan College Station market and then hang around till the end because I will jump into an example of a property I bought just a few months back. The basic equation for analyzing properties boils down to income minus your expenses equals your cash flow, also known as your profit. For your income, we're going to do this on a monthly basis, so you want to know what the market rent is monthly for that property. Don't fall into the trap of using current rents. Those are usually well below market rents because of tired landlords and dogshit property managers. So ask a realtor or check on Rentometer to see what current market rents are, and then make sure you apply an appropriate vacancy rate. If it's a good property in a good area of Bryan College Station, I'm comfortable with 5% vacancy. However, if it's an area known to have a higher vacancy, I will push it up as high as about 10%. Sometimes I have these wild dreams where every rent check just goes directly into my bank, and that's it. In reality, we've got expenses. I break expenses down into 5 categories, not including debt. We'll get to that here in a second. So your expenses as I see them: property taxes, insurance, maintenance, property management, and other. Starting off with property taxes, you'll be able to find this on your local county assessor website. Here in Brazos County, which is where Bryan College Station is located, we're going to use the Brazos County CAD. I'll have a link down below. But for rough math, so you don't have to look it up, we're going to take the asking price. We're going to take 2% of that, so 2% of the asking price, and we're going to divide it by 12 months in a year to give us our monthly expense there. So asking price divided, or 2% of the asking price divided by 12. Insurance. This one can be very difficult. So make sure you talk to an insurance agent before you finalize this number. But for rough math, I usually say between 100 and 150 a month in insurance expenses. $100 is more my single family side. Duplexes and fourplexes can get to 150 or slightly higher. But again, this is a number you're going to want to verify before getting too far down the rabbit hole. For your maintenance expense, my rough math says 15% of rental income will cover most of your maintenance expenses, and your capital expenses. That's things like a new roof, new AC, new driveways, etc. 15% is a good middle of the road. However, if the property is older or you're not rehabbing it, expect a little bit more. If it's a newer property, 2010 or newer, or you're doing extensive rehab, that number might get a little bit lower. So feel free to adjust that on your quick analysis. Up next, we've got property management. Whether you're self-managing or hiring out a manager, there's going to be expenses. If you're going to self-manage, I usually recommend 3 to 5%. This will cover things like software, the just legal expenses, bookkeeping, stuff like that. If you're going to hire out a manager, here in Bryan College Station, you're looking at 10 to 12%. Expect it to be closer to the 12% range of that until you have multiple properties. So that leaves us with other. For me, other includes lawn care, pest control, utilities. Lawn care is going to cost you between $50 and $75 a cut, so let's call it $120 a month. Pest control, you want to keep the German cockroaches out of your units, so $25 a month should cover that. And then for utilities, our multifamily are generally submetered, and tenants will pay the electrical bill, whether it's a single family or multifamily. However, our duplexes and fourplexes generally have one water meter, so the landlord's going to pay that expense. For your utilities, for your water, expect that to be about $75 a month. Our last expense is debt. I break this out separately because this can vary greatly. If you have tons of cash and you're buying the property in cash, this doesn't apply. Congratulations. For the rest of us that need to use a bank or some other loan product to buy a property, we're going to have to determine what our principal and interest payments are going to be every month. So I recommend talking to a lender before you even get to the point where you're looking at properties, so that you can know what your amortization is going to be, what the interest rate is going to be, what the terms of the down payment are going to be, et cetera, et cetera, et cetera, so that you can figure out what numbers to use to calculate this. And because it is a more complex equation to do, I download a principal and interest or loan calculator onto my phone. You can also Google mortgage calculator or loan calculator, plug in the terms that you got from your bank to determine what your monthly expense is going to be for your principal and interest payments. Before we jump into the example on a property I recently purchased, I want to define a few things. First, cash flow, we just talked about that, income minus expenses. Up next is the capital invested. Keep in mind that's going to be your down payment, plus your closing cost, plus any kind of rehab you're going to do on that property up front. Cash on cash return is simply your annualized cash flow divided by your initial investment. And then your equity growth each year is your principal pay down and the appreciation of a property. In Bryan College Station, we've averaged a little over 3% appreciation for the last 30 years, so that's the number I use. Okay, this is complicated, but it's super important. There's more to life than just cash flow, and the majority of the returns that I've seen have been from appreciation. 5-year annualized return on an investment. This equation is relatively simple. We're going to take the profit on the sale of property, and I'll break that down more in the example. We're going to take the cumulative cash flow over 5 years, and we're going to divide all of that by our initial investment. That's going to give you your total return. We'll divide that by the number of years, in this case 5, to give us our annualized 5-year return on our investment. This will make a lot more sense in a second, so watch until the end as I break down my example property, which we call Kim Street. I've told a number of my clients that I don't buy purely for cash flow, and here's a case in point. Kim Street is an off-market deal that I bought for $110,000. The rehab budget was $35,000 because of the current condition it was in. I was all in for $145,000 and was able to get a loan for $120,000. So my personal investment was $25,000 of my cash into this deal. After fixed up, we determined it would be worth $160,000. So let's look at the cash flow. My rent estimated at $1,400 a month. My vacancy, 5%, $70 a month. My taxes come out to $250 a month. My insurance is $90 a month. My maintenance is $200 a month. Again, 15%, and I adjusted it based on the repairs we were going to do and the age of the property. My property management, again, I self-manage, but 5% is $70 a month. I have no other expenses because it's a single-family home, so I pass those off to the tenants, and then my debt is $700 a month based on the loan that I got. So at the end of that month, I walk away with a whopping $20 in my pocket, barely enough to take my wife to Chick-fil-A for lunch once a month. Times 12, that means on an annual basis, I bring in $240 a year. That's dog shit cash flow, but just to take this one step further, let's look at my cash on cash return. $240 per year divided by $25,000 initial investment means I'm bringing in less than 1% cash on cash return. You can beat that in the bond market. You can beat that almost anywhere. Your savings account can probably beat that. So why did I buy this property? Well, my equity growth each year is 3% of that $160,000, which means my equity growth is $4,800. 1% cash flow is dog shit. But please don't stop there. I didn't and I don't. I always run an equation over a longer time frame. I prefer to use a 5-year annualized return on investment. And that's what I did for Kim Street, and you'll see why I ended up pulling the trigger on it. As a reminder, our offer price for Kim Street, $110,000. My expected rehab, $35,000. My after repair value, when the dust settles, it's worth $160,000. I'm bringing $25,000 of my hard-earned money to the deal, and my banker's bringing $120,000. Now, to determine the return on the investment over those 5 years, I need to know the profit if I were to sell. To determine the profit if I were to sell, I need to know what it would be worth 5 years from now. For simple math, I take the 3% appreciation applied to $160,000 after repair value to come up with $4,800 per month in annual appreciation. Multiply that by 5 years, and I came up with $24,000 of total appreciation. If I add that to the current value of $160,000, I would list the property for $184,000 5 years from today. Of course, there are expenses when you go to sell a property, so we're going to include those. Think of those as like your realtor fees and your closing costs. $10,000 should cover it. My debt, it was an interest-only loan, so I have to pay back the entire principal balance of $120,000. And then in order to figure out profit, you'll also have to subtract your initial investment. In my case, for this deal, that would be $25,000. So hypothetically, 5 years from now, if I sold the property, my profit would be $29,000. Now, that's not my only profit, because remember, I'm getting dog shit Chick-fil-A money. So I'm making $240 per year times 5 years, means that my cash flow, cumulative, would be $1,200, which I add to the $29,000 to come up with $30,200 of total net profit if sold year 5. To determine my return on investment, I have to divide that by the initial investment. In this case, it's $25,000. If you stop there, you'll have a ROI number. But in order to make that a good comparative number, something you can compare to other numbers, you want to divide that by the 5 years to get your annualized 5-year return. In my case, that's roughly 24%. A 24% return is a hell of a lot better than 1% cash on cash. So I hope what you take away from this video is that there's more to life than just cash on cash returns. I hope that you use a longer time horizon, and I hope that if you're a buy and hold investor, you use something like a 5-year ROI annualized. I also hope that you like and subscribe to this channel, and that you hang around for more content. And until then, you take it easy. See you guys.